this may be surprising.
Stephen A. said a lot about Sanders, but he also tweeted out, quote, "This is Kaepernick all over again." What's your reaction?
My answer is no. That's my reaction. And I can't believe this is the number one skeptic of the NFL. I'm somebody who many times Atlantic and in shows like this have talked about how this league has a lot of racist underpinnings. They, as you mentioned, they have a terrible track record. So I'm the last person to throw down the cape over the puddle for the NFL. But in this case, it wasn't about race. I think it had everything to do with the fact that they did not value Shedeur Sanders as a talent, as that kind of surefire. He's a lock as a first round or top 5 kind of guy.
Jamil Hill, formerly of ESPN, weighed in on the Shedeur Sanders talk.
We've seen guys drop because of injuries. We've seen guys drop because of off-field issues, but we've never seen a quarterback projected to be a top 20 pick, universally recognized one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft, projected to be a first rounder, in all likelihood a safe bet of a late first rounder, and drop literally to the 5th round. We haven't seen anything like that. And when you're talking about the owners, I'm going to keep in mind, and I tweeted about this, seems very Kaepernick-like, as in Colin Kaepernick.
As did Stephen A. Smith of ESPN. When he witnessed a plethora of quarterbacks being taken before Shedeur Sanders.
So how is Shedeur Sanders going behind them? I'll tell you how. It's collusion. You're willing to collectively send that kind of message, and don't act like it wasn't a collective effort. For all we know, teams collectively, meaning owners, had come to the conclusion nobody's going to touch them in the first 4 rounds. All right, now that the round 5 is here, our message has been sent, so y'all could go about the business of sort of lifting the embargo, for lack of a better phraseology. I don't know what the hell happened. All I know is this: it's freaking unfair. It ain't right.
The word I simply cannot agree with here is collusion. It's because the reports of the interviews he had with NFL teams is a huge storyline being overlooked if we just point to collusion. He refused to take blame in one instance. Another, he claimed the coaching staff might not be a match for him. In another pre-draft interview with one NFL team, one coach intentionally put in mistakes Sanders conducted to see if he would catch them. He did not. When called out on it, the two bickered. This was another really big moment where the quarterback did not wow a team, but rather solidified them not selecting him. And yet there was another moment. Breer printed Shedeur and allegedly his father Deion, aka Coach Prime, tried pulling an Eli Manning, i.e. intentionally trying to sway teams to not draft him so he could go to his preferred landing spot. Shedeur was a very, very good college quarterback. He was not the greatest. So doing this is risky, and it didn't pay off.
And again, in that draft process, that's an evaluation of who you are, your character, your football character, all those things. So if it's true, the reports that he was purposely tanking some interviews because he didn't want to go to those teams, showing up and doing other things with other teams, those kind of messages get out across the league, and they're going to reflect poorly on him. And so you can't, if they already think you're kind of a borderline talent, and then you add the extra stuff to it, it is going to greatly influence your draft stock. And no, we can't compare it to Colin Kaepernick. This is a man who lost his career when he already had been to a Super Bowl and done a lot as a quarterback. And then he had his career taken from him because of he made the mistake of actually standing up for black people.
Another highly trusted media member, former NFL quarterback Boomer Esiason, who has also worked for various media outlets. He said this on his show.
Shedeur Sanders just torpedoed himself. His attitude off the field at the combine, his dad didn't help him either. You know, he was on podcasts talking about, this is my son. If I can get him to where I want to get him to, I'm going to do that. But, you know, when you listen to this kid talk right prior or at the combine about if you want a new culture in your locker room, I'm the guy to do that. I can turn it around. I mean, he's very high on himself. And I think he was very off-putting to many, many coaches and general managers in the league. And I'm telling you right now, and I know this after talking to 3 different personnel people in the NFL this weekend, they didn't even have him on their board. They took him off. And they took him off because the owner said, take him off. I don't want that guy. I don't want this entitled person on our team. And I don't blame him.
I want to be clear about this, okay? I texted a source who was in the know because I could not understand this fall, a historic fall at that. I texted them and all I said was, what is going on here? What is happening? I've heard the chatter from critics, but I need some evidence because I want to know how to approach this on the air. And this person told me that they knew individuals in the room that Shedeur was interviewing, and the reporting from Breer, the reporting from The Athletic is true. It's true. He did not come prepared. He deflected. He did not own his mistakes. When he was pressed, because coaches will do this to recruits, they'll do this to players on the team, they will do this to potential players on the team in the interview process. One coach from a team I will not reveal pressed him, and he did not react well. He keeps deflecting blame over and over when the proof is in the pudding on the film that they put up. And when they're asking, what is this about? And he says it's somebody else's fault. Bad. They're going over game situations. He has no idea how to react. Bad. You're saying that this is a cornerstone of your franchise. And then he's saying how he wants things to be like colossal mistakes being made here. Colossal. That's why I didn't want to comment originally, because I didn't know. I did not know. And then you combine that with Deion says, draft Shiloh, draft Shedeur, and then come hire me to be your head coach. How many people in front offices are going to buy that stuff? Because what happens is they're potentially going to be out of a job and be replaced. You want to draft your replacement, your known replacement potentially? No. Of course not. Stephen A brought it up about how he didn't participate in the Senior Bowl and he didn't participate in the Combine and he didn't participate in other stuff. That is up to the player. I'm sort of indifferent on that stuff. I think if you want to solidify your draft stock a little bit more than you do it, I think that's true. But what I think could have happened is we wouldn't be talking about this stuff if he aced those interviews, and he failed them. He failed them. We wouldn't be talking about the Senior Bowl. We wouldn't be talking about the Combine. We wouldn't be talking about Coach Prime's approach on draft my kids and I'll coach your team. We would be talking about, he slipped to late first round, early second round, which is my read on the situation. He could have if he performed better in those meetings, and he didn't. So look, I call it out. I'm straightforward. I'm honest. I am telling you, this is someone that I trust with my life. This is not racism. This is not collusion. And for Stephen A, stop talking about Colin Kaepernick because he helped bury him. What this is about is Shedeur Sanders, who I like and I wish the utmost success in the National Football League. At the end of the day, it was him in those interviews.
Okay, cool. He sells a good thing. Let's dissect that. No, don't boo it. No. He's no. I'm not gonna have this. If this guy likes Trump, he's allowed to like Trump. You're not allowed to boo him for that. People are allowed to have different opinions. That's why we lose things on the left all the time. Because we don't let people speak their actual mind and their opinion, and then he's got to go on a forum and do it. And at the moment, it's I like Trump. And if we don't let him say that, in 2 weeks, it's going to be, and the Jews run everything.
That is comedian Elliot Steele. And I got to be honest, he's bringing up some fair points here.
So you've got to let him speak what he thinks, man. You can't boo someone for having a different opinion. That's why London sucks now. Most of you would vote for Trump over Kamala if you knew. If you watched policy or anything like that, people vote for Trump, not because they're fascist and they're racist, but because he offered actual policy that was going to help. There was a guy who was voting for him, and his reason was just, he's going to cut tax on overtime. That guy isn't Enoch Powell. He's just trying to get by with his family. And then when you boo someone for having an opinion like that, it doesn't help anything. It doesn't do anything. Why are you racist?
It is a rather perplexing reaction, isn't it? Booing someone is a tough sell. Unless, of course, it's your favorite team going up against Draymond Green. I mean, that's fairly easy. But booing this guy, I actually think Steele is bringing up some fair points. Because in many ways, everyone has their own methodology of dealing with MAGA, but in many ways, he's right. You boo him, you ridicule him, you seclude him. Is he going to learn from that? Or is he just going to dig his heels in and go rant on 4chan? It's a legitimate question that Steele poses.
I know there's some conservatives in the audience. That's okay. Yeah. That's okay. It's fine. Just so you know, though, it is easier to become you. It is. It takes like 2 bad things. It's like you hit traffic and your Amazon package just gets stolen and you're like, everybody needs a f***ing gun. You're like, all right. It never goes the other way, though, right? It never goes like conservative to liberal. That never happens. It's too long of a journey. Because you have to let love into your heart, which is vulnerable and also gay. So they're not going to do that. No.
And then there's another comedian who shows a different way of dealing with it, and his name is Andy Haynes.
And then he goes over to California to address the wildfires. And he doesn't know what's going on. He's like, "What? I didn't know they got that big. That's so scary." He has no game plan. He's got no plan. What is he gonna? Well, I'll tell you what we gotta do. We gotta fight fire with fire. So what we will do, we'll import the fires from Mexico, and we'll tax them, and that's how we get rid of these terrible fires.
What did the other side do, though? Had to be real.
And the man you just saw, whose name is Aaron, the comedian, shows this video, and I do love these cutaways that we see on TikTok of some comedian sets where they'll show the comedian speaking and then they'll show the person in the crowd, because I think it's also very important context. And it feels as though this person regrets opening their mouth almost instantly.
What's your favorite thing he's done so far? What's your favorite policy?
You can't judge the guy in 15 days.
Okay, so the response is, I don't have an answer. Here's the funniest part, right? These are the same people like, these limo snowflakes are so sensitive. But this guy, that's like, not my president. Hey, by the way, he was just doing the Roman salute, okay? And he's autistic, all right? Just like I am, I know. Was it a Roman salute or was it a Heil Hitler? What do you think?
I'm not making it that much into it. I don't know.
You know the talking points well, I'll give you that. Tucker Carlson has trained you well. What's going on? What's going on? A man has autism and Tourette's and everyone thinks he's a Nazi. What's going on?
Here's where I call BS. This person, who is clearly a supporter of Donald Trump, says you can't draw any conclusions within 15 days. You can, because it hasn't just been 15 days. He had policies and actions that were put in place in 2016. He didn't stay out of the news. Granted, there were no policy choices, but there were fundamental decisions on how he was going to run the playbook, and teaming up with the architects of Project 2025, where I believe a Project 2025 tracker that I saw last week or the week before says we're over 40% of the way there. So we know what policies that this man wants to institute because we've already seen them in place. He's already talked about what he's going to do, and he's already done them. And it's only going to get worse. Today, I saw Stephen Miller talk to the press in the White House press room about how they're eradicating the Department of Education, which Project 2025 calls for. And then he says, we're going to get rid of the woke and men wanting to be women and women being men and the hatred for our country. We are going to take out communism and Marxism and the wokeness virus out of schools, and we are going to run the schools. Only if those schools agree with us will we give them federal funding. Well, that's fascism. So to that guy in the crowd, I'm sure we could have a lively discussion, all right, over a drink. But with this, you're in support of this? You like this? I'm just curious, for a lot of Trump supporters, where is your red line? Truly. Is it the empty shelves that are coming in about depending on when you see this, a week or two, maybe 3? Is it COVID-like grocery stores? Yeah, I mean, you voted for the economy guy. You wanted egg prices to go down. And now you're getting this. What is the red line for these people? They say they're constitutionalists. I don't see it. Which one? I'm very serious about this, and I'm very curious about it. Because I just don't get it. I don't get how you guys can be so brazen and buy into this all the time. He's not going to make you richer unless you're Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Peter Thiel and the Google guy and the OpenAI guy. And Sam Bankman-Fried is probably turning MAGA heel. But I'm just curious, where's the red line? Or is the currency hatred? Is the currency going after trans people who don't affect your lives one way or the other? Is it self-hatred that you just haven't acknowledged? I mean, I'm ranting here, but I really am curious because it's just dumbfounding to me how so many people cannot either pay attention or they did and they don't care. And our lives are about to get so much harder because of y'all's votes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a phenomenal piece of video.
They speak liberal, they have liberal friends, and then they go online and they are a white supremacist. They're the most insecure men I've ever sat down with. It was really difficult to have some of these dates because they were so insecure, because they don't really know who they are and they don't know how to figure that out.
She said the men she dated got all their news and information from the so-called manosphere.
They did not listen to anything else. They're only listening to independent media, and they're only listening to men talking to men. They love the UFC guys. They love the MMA guys because those guys do what they can. They're modern gladiators. They're badass. One of these guys brought me to a political meeting.
And did they talk about politics?
Barely. They talked about, it was a bunch of men complaining about girlfriends and wives, regurgitating Andrew Tate type of advice about how to train your girlfriend, how to train your wife to be submissive. And so this group was supposed to be a political group, but they're talking about relationship problems. And the fact that that's what most of the time was spent on, you don't need to be a neo-Nazi. You need therapy. The thing about these guys is their biggest support system is online, but that also is very isolating, and isolation is what breeds hatred.
Groups like Patriot Front offer community, but community based on racism and hate.
People have to really think about, do you have the capacity to talk to people that you don't agree with? Because that one nice conversation you might have might change someone's day enough to not have to seek out help in an online support group, which is actually a bunch of white supremacists using political beliefs as an excuse for how they feel.
That's Vera Papasova, an independent journalist who decided to go undercover and tell all about dating men in the manosphere. We have discussed this before, and if you missed it,
there is a massive amount of right-wing radicalization that has been occurring, especially in younger male spaces. Everything is completely dominated by right-wing politics. If you're a dude under the age of 30 and you have any hobbies whatsoever, whether it's playing video games, whether it's working out, whether it's, I don't know, listening to like a history podcast or whatever, every single facet of that is just completely dominated by center right to, I wouldn't say far right in the same way that it was back in like the 2016 era at the end of like Obama's administration, but like definitely center right to Trumpian right, like openly Trump right, not like genuinely neo-Nazi. That part is quieted down a little bit, but like they're like 90% of the way there for the most part. And that's it. Everything that they see is right-wing sentiment being expressed by individuals that they find charismatic, thought leaders, influencers that they subscribe to. And I think that is some of the reason why you see this movement.
A member of the manosphere akin to a Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Bradley Martin, Andrew Schultz, Nelk Boys, etc. is former UFC fighter Jake Shields. Now, I am going to give you some names that he has hosted, okay? Former Grand Wizard of the Triple K, David Duke. Ian Carroll, a man who was on Rogan pretty recently, within the last month or two, who espouses and clings to Nazi rhetoric. Bryce Mitchell, a UFC fighter who has praised Hitler. The leader of Patriot Front, Thomas Russo, known anti-vaxxer and January 6th rioter Tony Moon. Myron Gaines, a man who said he would date teenagers, will not date black women, and wrote a book titled Why Women Deserve Less. He's also with the Fresh and Fit podcast. They're horrible. The leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio. Do you get a theme going on here a little bit? And then Royce White, who unsuccessfully ran for the Senate in Minnesota. So Shields was interviewed by CNN's Donny O'Sullivan, and he made the argument that these conversations are helpful.
Which is precisely the reason why I do not ever want to extend a lending hand, even if I am being critical. Even if I am being critical of them, I feel like having a conversation with someone like that ends up giving them a lot more, even if they get their arguments get thoroughly dismantled, right? Like this person says, you did debate Nick, though. Exactly. It was, I think, one of the worst moments of my career in general was that he snuck into that conversation, and it was a terrible idea. It's something that I have deep shame for. I think it was horrible. It doesn't matter if you dunk on Nick Fuentes, you're still giving him a platform that he never, ever would have gotten. Why are you so cruel towards broken men? I'm not. A broken man has the opportunity to fix himself and become a better person. I'm cruel to those who make it everybody else's problem. I'm cruel to broken men who, in their broken male status, turn around and attack everybody viciously. Only weak men, only insecure and weak men actively put the crosshairs on those who are vulnerable.
Yet hear from one man who detached from it altogether.
They adopted bro culture. Yeah. The things I was into 10 years ago, the same people I used to follow online. Yeah. I used to be a big Joe Rogan fan. Who else is there? Bradley Martin. And they adopted bro culture. People who don't even know they're taking in right-wing ideology.
Well, I have had to talk to a lot of people who don't know, and they say that's where they get their information from. And Donald Trump has actually been able to activate and energize that demographic in the electorate, which could put him over the top. And so you don't listen to them anymore.
There was a couple of Joe Rogan interviews that threw me off a little bit a couple of years ago. And then you looked up the names and who these people are, and you're like, well, this guy's an obvious white supremacist or a race scientist. And you're like, how did we get here? It's so confusing.
In the end,
you can usually, those groups are always going to exist, right? But in times of abundance, no, not really. In times of better economic and baseline economic conditions, and when baseline needs are met, when there's more upward mobility, when there's hope about the future, you're less likely to have these reactionary groups gain in prominence because there is a sense of purpose that is found outside of insular and often hateful communities. And part of what, honestly, I think I missed in the lead up to this election was these insular communities that I don't understand of the manosphere or these online far-right influencer spaces, because they are definitionally insular. And it creates antisocial behavior, but it also gives people at least some sort of temporary release to the alienation that people are feeling, exacerbated during COVID, but really exacerbated as income and wealth inequality continues to worsen. And we've had multiple recessions, we've had multiple economic crises. And what is the result of that? What was the result of the Great Recession in 2008? More transfer of wealth to the top.
If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports, and or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.